Happy New Year! This is Michelle from Sunway Test. I'm the main coordinator for CFA program. We are happy to have you here tonight with us to know more about how CFA will bring you to a higher career stage and also how CFA can help you to upgrade yourself. Um, well, I hope you are studying 2021 with a very good start by taking up the CFA program. Well, tonight we have Mr. Beng Hui, who is the chairman of AB Maximus, which is also our partner in offering the CFA program. Let's welcome Beng Hui. Um, Hi, Beng
Hi,
Hui. Happy New
good
Year to
evening,
you.
Michelle. Thank you for the warm introduction, and good evening to everyone. So
Yeah.
tonight, I have a few prepared slides, but at the same time, of course, feel free to ask questions. There is actually a chat box. You can type in your questions, and then we'll try to take as many questions as we can
Yep.
this evening. All right. So with that, let's get started.
Yep.
With my slides. Yeah, just a couple of slides to share about the program, about some possible career path and so on. Yeah. Okay, so let's get going with the next slide. Okay, so essentially, of course, at the end of the day, most people will take the CFA program working towards the qualification of CFA. That's because I think all of you would like to get into the investment, fund management, finance industry. So this is, basically the top occupation of CFA members globally. So these are the global statistics. So essentially, most of the CFA charter holders, they are working as portfolio manager or research analyst. So that is the core jobs occupation of the CFA community, right? So added together is about 40%. Of course, when the program was first started in the 1960s, yeah, that's a long time ago. At that time, it's probably like 90% or something of the members are portfolio managers and research analysts. So, in other words, the occupations are a bit diverse after more than 50 years. And then that is the diversity of the profession or the membership. So today, members, of course, besides being the CEO of the investment companies, of course, they are also investment consultants. So that's a single digit percentage there. Some members are working as risk managers, typically in a large financial institution. That is in the bank or a large fund management company as a risk manager. And then also some other members are working in the corporate finance part of the industry. And of course, there are also some who are relationship managers, likely to be private bankers, or they are financial advisors advising clients. And then, of course, there's this big sector there, 26% others. So others including academics and members working, although they could be in the financial sector, but working in other roles. Okay, so these are the main roles or occupations. Okay, I have another slide on the next slide. Is related to the earlier slide, but it looks into basically the different aspects of the financial industry. So, within investment, you could be in the asset management field, right? Managing money for clients, whether institutions or individuals. You could be in the accounting and finance. You could be in investment banking. you could be in an equity firm, and so on and so forth. So there are different ways of looking into profession or subsector within finance. Okay, so that kind of gives you the profile of the different types of possibilities, basically. Okay, so on to the next slide. Okay, so the next part of my short presentation here before we, take some of your questions really is to look into the different job roles, right? So we can be looking in front office positions, in this case, and then of course across the different countries within our region here. And of course the numbers are in local currency denomination. Okay, so you see that I've highlighted the Malaysia numbers, right? But of course, some of you may be aspiring to be moving on to some other countries within the region. That's perfectly fine. But this one is to give you a picture of what the numbers are like for an entry-level analyst position, okay, the next level associate, and then VP, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the front office kind of a role that you're looking at. Next slide. Okay, next slide is still, of course, some other roles in front office as well. Now, so when people say, okay, I want to be an analyst or fund manager or someone in a private equity or, equity capital market or debt capital market, ECM, DCM, whatever it is, front office role. Front office meaning that you are client facing. Typically, these roles obviously require people to be, facing clients. These are the more glamorous, so-called glamorous positions within the finance, and typically the pay is like slightly better. Okay, and I think many people like yourselves aspire to go into these positions. So how can the CFA qualification help? Of course, in many global financial institutions, they do actually consider potential candidates for the job, those with the CFA designation. So therefore, the question that some of you might have is, hey, what about if I just have level 1 or level 2, but I don't have the full, complete all 3 levels, or I don't have the Cfa Charter? Then my answer to, just preempting, my answer to that line of question is, well, having level 1 or level 2, at least that is a conversation starter. It demonstrates to the employer that you have at least completed certain stages of the examination, which tells the employer that yes, number one, you have that knowledge, right? And number two, you have that discipline, to go through that rigorous examination process, right? But then again, if you are going into a more competitive market like Singapore or Hong Kong, then obviously there are many people with already completed, these different levels of exam. It's more competitive. Just to give you some relative numbers, in Malaysia, I think there are less than 1,000 CFA charter holders. In Singapore, the numbers are something like 3.5 to 4 times that size, 3,000 plus over close to 4,000 people with the CFA Charter. In Hong Kong, it is of course higher than Singapore, closer to 6,000. So that shows that competitive numbers in terms of charter holders. Obviously, when you trickle down to people who have completed level 3, completed level 2, completed level 1, it's a pyramid, right? Yeah, it's a pyramid. Okay, so it is competitive, but it is a conversation starter. and it can potentially help to open the door. But it is not the silver bullet, right? Meaning that it doesn't guarantee you that job. So that's why we normally would tell candidates that, this is not everything. Passing the exam and getting the charter is not everything. You still need to demonstrate your ability and your competency through the interviews and also your own professional experience as well. Okay, so what I'm doing here in this first couple of slides is to actually kind of like show the potential jobs available, the different subsectors, and some of the jobs within finance, which are front office. At the same time, we also have some, let's go to the next slide. So we also have some middle office positions here in risk, market risk, credit risk. Middle office meaning you are in between and probably supporting the front office colleague, but at the same time you are not entirely like just crunching numbers and doing nothing else. You're middle office. You're not the back office, doing bookkeeping and all the lots of paperwork and stuff like that. So middle office still requires you to be facing customer, but it is an internal customer, right? Your internal customer is your colleague who is the front office person. So you might be most likely supporting, in this case, whether credit risk or market risk, supporting maybe a portfolio manager or supporting maybe a private banker, supporting people who are facing the client. So the thing here is whether it is middle office. I didn't put up the back office slide here. Whether it's middle office or back office, personally, if you ask me, is it worthwhile getting into this job? Because in your mind, you want to be in the glamorous client facing, but don't belittle people who are in the middle and back office for a few reasons. Okay, number one, the pay is not that bad. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are if your main motivation is the remuneration, the pay is not that bad. Okay, in fact, in some cases, the middle office pay can be actually just as good, and sometimes even better. Okay, because in the front office, where personally I had spent some years in those roles before, is a feast and famine, right? Because you're client facing, in a very, very good year, you'll make tons of money. But in a not so good year, in a recession or when markets are down, your clients are losing money, or you're not bringing enough AUM into the company, then obviously your pay or bonus won't be so good. Whereas the mid office guys are very stable in terms of the pay, and then of course at the same time there is actually a lot of longevity in the mid and back office roles, meaning that okay, so when I first graduated many years ago, in the early 1990s, so I came from accounting background, right? Personally, so most of my classmates obviously went to join a Big Four or Big Five or whatever it was at that time, and some people went on to join banks and investment companies. Most of the classmates who went to join the investment bank, many of them, after a few rounds of recessions and whatever, most people are gone, right? Because front office role is really they come and go, right? Hire, fire. But most of the classmates who were in risk management, in audit, in a bank, and whatever mid or back office roles, today is the other way around, right? Most of them are still around, right? So if you do your net present value, right, probably the mid and back office guys are they're better off, in my view. Okay, unless you are really the exceptional front office person and every market cycle you survive, okay, then of course you are really right in front there. Okay, so that's my very quick maybe 10-15 minutes of sketching this scenario about the roles, about the jobs, pay, what makes sense and so on. Okay, so I just want to move on to the next segment of my deck of slides, all right? So, okay, so you imagine, okay, this is the sector or the role you want to go to, and that is maybe the job that you're aspiring to do, and maybe you got a plan A, you want to get this. If you can't get the role that you want, have a plan B, right? And the plan B is never mind, even if it's not front office, mid office, back office, never mind. Get a foot into it. Why I say that is because most of the time when um, companies advertise, especially if it is not a big bank, if it's a smaller meaning in terms of numbers, not in the dollar terms, in terms of the number of hires that they have is smaller. They don't hire too many people. When the company do not hire too many people, obviously when they hire, they normally have already somebody in mind or is referred in by an internal person. And if that's the case, then you need to be in the network. So in Malaysia, of course, there is a network. The investment banking or the fund management industry is not very big. So most of the time, people refer one another. So one way for you to get in really is, of course, one of the ways, not is not the only way, is by joining maybe the local society or chapter of CFA. They open their memberships after you have passed a certain levels, you can actually join. So that's one way to get into the network. Another thing that CFA Malaysia does is they have an annual career day. That's another opportunity for you, and especially if you're part of the candidates of the Sunway Test and AB Maximus program. Of course, Sunway Test, AB Maximus, we've been working very closely with the local chapter here. And for AB Maximus, we work with most of the chapters around the region, and we try to get our students to participate in all these investment challenge, in the career day, and so on, because you want to be in that network, all right, in that network. But of course, network is one way. On this slide, you see by experience is another way. Of course, by experience is what's advertised out there. If you meet the criteria, then you're able to at least get in front of the hiring manager for that interview, right? So by network, by experience, if there's still that spot left to apply to, and of course by qualification, kind of similar thing as well. So CFA is one of it. And then we always get this question about MBA and Masters of Finance. Is it worth taking compared to CFA? How does it compare? So being in this finance sector and also running programs for many years, more than 2 decades, my short answer to that is, and of course, feel free to ask us questions afterwards or drop us an email. But my short answer to this comparison is there's only one CFA. There are tons of MBAs and masters out there. So unless you're Ivy League or Oxford, Cambridge, or maybe one of the top universities in Asia, meaning the top universities in Singapore, Hong Kong, or in China or Japan. Otherwise, these other MBAs out there, Masters of Finance, probably not as good in comparison to CFA, in my view, right? So it's important. Okay, then what about bachelor's degree? Today, bachelor's degree alone is not enough. Yeah, not enough, right? Even though you could have a very good bachelor's degree from a top-notch university, that's including Sunway University, of course. You always need something else to differentiate you from the few hundred other people who are applying for the same position. All right. So obviously CFA, in other words, could help, right? The CFA network can also help as well. Okay. So with that, let's go on to the next slide, right? Yeah. So I'm like selling that story, right? But indeed, really, our frank opinion is you need that extra edge, right, when it comes to that getting into that job. Okay, so I think most of you are familiar with the CFA Charter, what it is. So this slide just kind of explain it a little bit for those who are not too familiar. The CFA Charter is a graduate level program, right? A certification. It's a professional certification, meaning that you need some effort to maintain it, all right? So it's just something like chartered accountants or CPAs or doctors or lawyers, right? It is a professional credential. So, and the profession typically, as I showed in the first slide, most of our members are fund managers, investment analysts, corporate finance professionals, risk managers, and so on. So what you need to do to maintain it? At the moment, there is no compulsory uh, there's no compulsory uh, continuing professional development hours you need to clock. Whereas compared to uh, lawyers, doctors, and accountants, uh, the profession requires them to clock certain number of CPD, right? For CFA charter holders at the moment, it's not yet compulsory, but voluntarily members clock minimum 20 hours, 20, and it's not difficult because if you attend investment conferences, if you even if you read certain relevant journals and so on, that counts towards the CFA CPD. And anyway, the CFA Institute is of the view as well that whilst you are practicing as a professional in whichever jurisdiction you're in, the regulator anyway requires you to do CPD anyway. So if you're in Malaysia, I believe you need to clock 20 points required by Securities Commission. Previously, before the COVID, the 20 points means you need to do 2 full days of CPD. All right. Today, of course, these days with the COVID situation, the number of hours are reduced a little bit, but it's still 20 points. You need to clock 20 points in Malaysia. In Singapore, you need to clock, depending on which license you hold, the most relaxed one is 9 hours. The not so relaxed ones, more rigorous, I wouldn't say rigorous, but more require more hours will be the 30 hours. So it ranges from 9 to 30 hours in Singapore, depending on your license. In Hong Kong, I think it's somewhere in between Malaysia and Singapore. All right, so in whichever jurisdiction, US, Hong Kong, Singapore, KL, the financial regulator requires you to do CPD anyway, because it's a professional job, correct? Okay, so that's expanding on that first bullet point. So this designation of ours, Chartered Financial Analysts, we have more than 100,000 professionals around the world. The number is growing all the time by several thousands in a year, and it's all over the world, as you know. But it's a small number if you look at it. I mean, compared to even doctors, there are very few CFA charter holders. So, in a way, we are still the gold standard when it comes to the investment profession. It's not like the street is flooded with CFA charter holders. All right, so it is, in our view, a very worthwhile, time well spent. Okay, it's recognized by regulatory bodies as a proxy for licensing requirements. So here in Malaysia and in many jurisdictions around the world, the regulators actually recognize, obviously, CFA Charter as the premier designation for investment professionals, and hence they accord CFA Charter holders with exemptions. So for certain licensing exams in Malaysia in particular, you do get exemptions from some of these papers, in particular those that are related to fund management, capital markets, equity markets, and so on. So personally and professionally as a company, we've been working closely with the Securities Commission, probably close to 10 years already. AB Maximus is one of the few companies in the world that consults with regulators. So example will be Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, that we are the setters of the examination syllabus and the questions as well. So that's why we know that it is still the main investment destination that's well recognized. Okay, in addition to that, many top universities around the world, including Oxford, which is among the top 10 in the world, including several in Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Malaysia, around the world, top universities, incorporate the CFA syllabus into their own curriculum. All right. So actually, that is these few points is a testament for those of you who are not yet convinced that CFA Charter or the CFA program is the program. These few points demonstrates to all the prospective candidates and current candidates and current CFA Charter holders that this program, it is still today most relevant for the investment industry. For those of you who are still in studying or about to complete or just recently completed your programs, especially if you have taken an investment or finance program in Malaysia with the top universities, you will actually notice that what you have learned back in university looks very familiar with the CFA Level 1 syllabus. That's because the universities here incorporate about 70%, 60 to 70% of your curriculum is mirrored with or mapped to the CFA Level 1 curriculum. Yeah. So including Sunway, of course. Okay, next slide. Okay, I just got a couple more slides and then we open this for Q&A, all right? And of course, Michelle will also share with you a bit more details about the up and coming classes that Sunway Test and AB Maximus is running. Okay, so again, for those of you who are new to the CFA program, you can actually check out more information about the CFA program from the cfainstitute.org website. That is the global CFA HQ in the US. So although it is a US program, but because it has been international since the 1980s, right? When it started in the 1960s, it's a very much Americanized or American-based program. But in the 1980s, it internationalized. So it came to Asia Pacific in the 1980s. And from then onwards, it really grew very quickly the moment it came out of the US. So with the CFA Charter, your investment perspective is firstly comprehensive, and second is global, right? It's not just US-centric. The syllabus is not just learning about US GAAP. Actually, it's more IFRS, if you ask me. Okay, so it's a very global perspective. Second point is the investment practices, again, is not purely US practices. Again, it's global investment analysis and management skills, although quite a lot of it is still US, but it's global. Okay, then the industry, of course, is also global, all right? The community is also global, all right? And, you know, as what the previous slide kind of show you that because it's adopted by so many universities and so many regulators around the world, this is really like in a way, a global passport, if you will. Because whilst, you know, you might, maybe not for Malaysians, but maybe for even a more developing country, maybe in the Middle East or some other countries, it really gives candidates more flexibility, or even our neighbors in Indochina, actually, it gives you the flexibility to work in any market, right? Whilst, of course, if you happen to graduate from your top university in your country, okay, example, say in Vietnam, for example, or Thailand, or whatever countries in Indochina, it gives candidates in whatever country the flexibility to work in any market, right? Because the employer probably will be a large regional company or global company, right? So the CFA doesn't need introduction, right? You don't have to explain, where you got this qualification. Yeah, so it gives you that flexibility, and that is really, really very, very important, right? And so is, of course, the top industry employers and so on. The last point on this slide is a commitment to ethics and professional standards. So, in the old days, yeah, sounds like very old, universities don't really cover this topic in their curriculum. But in, of course, the more recent years, some universities, many universities, start incorporating ethics and standards into their curriculum, especially after they've adopted the CFA, mapping to the CFA, right? But the thing is this, I mean, CFA syllabus already 50 years ago already have this ethics and standards, right? Similar to many other professional qualifications. So this is the differentiating factor between a professional program and a pure academic program, number one, right? There's this standards that practitioners adopt. That differentiates us from an academic, number one. And number two, after the last global financial crisis, indeed, not only that it pays to be ethical and so on, but indeed, you see a lot of this crisis in the past, sometimes and most of the time, the downfall of some of these financial institutions is because of some rogue trader or something happened somewhere, and it's plainly because of the poor ethical standards of certain individuals. So therefore, CFA charter holders, we hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we, in our own so-called selfish interest, we want to maintain that so that we differentiate ourselves from the run-of-mill other people in the industry. All right. So we like to see ourselves as the good guys, right, within the financial industry, which has many scandals, to be honest. Okay. So we have this commitment to ethics and standards, and as part of our renewal of our CFA charter, we actually need to sign off on a pledge to say that in the last 1 year we've been good. We are not involved in any of these whatever scandals. We are not fined by the regulator, and so on and so forth. So we hold ourselves to that standard, and we pledge ourselves every year to maintain that standard with the CFA Institute and the rest of our 100 over 1,000 members. That's to say that, hey, we are the good guys. So therefore, it demonstrates to employers that we are worthy of being hired by them. And that is just so important in a very competitive job market, right? Okay, so on to my next slide. Okay, so here are some contact emails just in case tonight either you're too shy to ask questions, or I am not able to answer it within the time, or and whatever reasons. Here are two contact information. One is from my colleague Andrew, who is also in on this call, so he's also listening in. And Michelle, of course, you just heard her a while ago, and of course afterwards she will also share a little bit on some dates and information about our program. Okay, so with that, I just want to open the floor for any questions that you may have about our program. But before I answer any of these questions, I want to spend maybe a couple of more minutes. So far I've talked about jobs, the profession, the CFA program, but maybe before you come in with your questions, maybe let me describe in a couple of minutes about the program that we have with Sunway. That AB Maximus is a proud partner of Sunway Test. We've been partnering with Sunway. This will be the 10th year we're running the program with Sunway. Of course, we're no strangers to running CFA training programs. We've done that since 1997, so for more than 20 years, pioneers in Asia Pacific in running CFA training programs. We've trained probably thousands of people around the region. So we have that long experience, number one. Number two, we've got a very strong and good partnership with Sunway Test. Number three, the panel of lecturers that we have, I would say they have probably a minimum of 15 to 20 years of experience professionally as an investment professional or finance professional. So they are subject matter experts, right? So that means all our topics are taught, the regular class, they are taught by subject matter experts. So that's for the regular weekly or fortnightly classes. So we don't depend on just one or two persons teaching everything, right? At all the levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. And then for the revision class before the exams, we get our expert in CFA program that teaches CFA full-time to do the revision. Or rather, he does maybe 2/3 of it. Of course, the 1/3 of the revision, we might still get in some of our regular lecturers, but the revision, at least 2/3 of it, is done by our revision specialist, who is our global lecturer based in Canada and based in the UK. All right. So for our regular lecturers, SMEs, they are investment professionals. Some of them have recently retired or they have become educators. Some of them today could be teaching for a university and so on. So primarily we are based in Singapore and in Malaysia. So the regular lecturers come from there. And then our revision specialists, is from our global pool that we've been working with again for at least 8 to 10 years. So that gives you a picture of the experience and the program. And of course, in terms of the content, Wiley is our content partner. So Wiley actually is the publisher for the CFA Institute textbook. At the same time, Wiley also produces a study guide that we use for the CFA revision program. Okay, so that is our content partner. Again, we've been partnering with them for many years. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to now open the floor, for your questions, if you have. Yeah. Okay. I see quite a lot of questions in the chat. So let me just open up the chat. Okay. Okay.
I think is trying to ask how ACCA qualification helps in taking CFA qualification.
Okay, yes, it's a very good question. So there are two aspects of this ACCA, right? Firstly is whether it helps. Secondly, whether it's relevant in terms of qualification. Okay, so because CFA on their website, they put the minimum entry requirement, right? Bachelor's degree. So ACCA is considered as degree equivalent in the eyes of many of these global examiner, including CFA Institute, right? So it meets the minimum entry requirement. So likewise, if you are like a final year student in university, you can take CFA level 1. So similarly, if you're doing your final stage in ACCA, you also qualify to take the CFA exam. Okay, so as to the relevance of the program in terms of the subjects, of course it is So whether you have ACCA or like myself previously, Bachelor's of Accountancy, actually it helps in your level 1 and part of level 2 because accounting is one of the subjects in level 1 and level 2 as well. Previously, it was quite big. Now, I think from last year onwards, kind of reduced the weightage a little bit, but still it is one of the biggest weightage subjects. So it will give you some advantage in level 1 and level 2 um, of CFA. All right. So having ACCA, Bachelor's of Accountancy, or some finance related qualification is very helpful, especially for level 1.
Yep.
Okay, so there are some other are there other questions? I can't see very clearly.
Next one, can I get exemptions?
Oh, okay, exemptions, huh? Okay, so the answer is no. Okay, you can be the professor of whatever. You can have a PhD or master's in whatever. You can be Albert Einstein, but sorry, no exemption, because CFA is a high standard, right? And it's the other way around. If you have a CFA, I mentioned earlier, right? Securities Commission, Monetary Authority in Singapore or Hong Kong, they recognize it for their exams if you have CFA. So it's the other way around. Similarly, if you take off some of the other finance qualification, they recognize CFA. Okay, so CFA is higher standard.
So instead of getting exemptions in CFA, you get CFA
CFA first.
get other exemptions.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay, do we have next question? Okay.
Experience. Okay, thank you. This again a typical question. Okay, you need 4 years of experience. The experience is retrospective. Okay, experience retrospective. So 48 months of relevant experience, and that experience must be investment decision making or related to it. All right, investment decision making or related to it. So meaning that you don't have to be a fund manager. You can be in a role that is supporting, right? You don't have to be an investment analyst, but you can be in a role that is supporting. And some other roles like auditor may actually qualify. Okay, I'll explain that in a short while. Okay, so if you go to the CFA Institute website, they actually have a kind of a quiz. You can answer a few questions and then they'll tell you whether yes or no. And you can also even write to them, write to info@cfainstitute.org. Of course, you can also write to us through Andrew or Michelle. But the quick answer to this is 48 months investment decision making, all related to it. Some examples even include auditor. But auditor, I put an asterisk there, okay? Not all auditors will qualify, and not all accountants will qualify because your work must be related to finance, okay, or rather related to investment, right? More specific, at least 50% of your time or more. So example is if you are working in the global big four or big five, but if your client in your audit portfolio is a bank or fund manager, fund management company, then the answer is yes, because all your work is supporting around it. If you work in the central bank, Bank Negara, you are a bank examiner. So meaning that you audit the banks. Of course you qualify, right? You work for Bank Negara, right?
Yeah.
If you're working in Securities Commission and your job is to, same thing, to regulate, audit or supervise capital market companies, of course you qualify, right? So that experience should have to be linked to investment company or investment role. Must you be in the finance or investment sector? So it is not the job title, it is not the sector even, it is the work that you do. So you can be working for, say, Sime Darby, you can be working for MNC, you can be working for SME, but if your job role is corporate finance, is treasury, you can be an accountant, not bookkeeper. You can be an accountant, but your job is to help your company make investment. Then the answer is yes. If your job is just to do bookkeeping of a manufacturing company, then sorry lah, your job is not relevant, right?
Yep.
Okay. We have other questions about experience.
There's another one. Okay.
Okay, final year. Okay. So so earlier I kind of mentioned this, right? So the key thing is final year, right? So I'm not sure because I'm not a CCA member. So I'm not sure at what stage they allow you to be associate, but essentially from the degree point of view, you should either have a degree or a final year student. So they'll be equivalent in ACCA, right? You complete your full ACCA or you're actually doing the final stages of ACCA. Yeah. Then you qualify to take level 1. Okay, so the 48 months, I just now kind of forgot. So 48 months is retrospective, right? Retrospective and cumulative. So retrospective meaning that you could have done all this experience before you became a CFA candidate, counted, right? And it's cumulative, not just one job. You can be working in the relevant field for 2 years, and then you move to another job position. Could be same company, but different position. Maybe temporary, that job role is not investment related. Okay, so not counted lah. Then when you move back to investment role, counted again. So it's cumulative, all right? And the other thing is this, the exam related, the CFA exam, you can actually no need to take it consecutively, right? The program is very flexible,
Yep.
right? We recommend people to take it, of course, after you have finished all your degree or ACCA,
Yeah.
or maybe you're about to complete, then you take. There is no rush. There's no rush to take so quickly because you need 48 months of experience anyway, right? So take your time, but don't take too long. Enroll for it within a short span of time after you have finished your degree or ACCA, so that some of this knowledge is still fresh and you still have that energy to study and prepare
Yeah.
for the exam because it's very rigorous, very rigorous. 300 hours minimum per level of preparation and attending lectures and so on and practicing the practice questions and so on. But it's flexible, right? That is, if let's say you started the journey of taking level 1, and then let's say you got into a new job and you want to take maybe a 6-month or 1-year break, it's okay, perfectly fine, right? Take that break, but don't take too long again, and then come back again to the program and continue, right? So the CFA exam is very flexible, right? The experience part is also very flexible. And then when you register as a CFA candidate, the so-called program enrollment is a one-time fee. So once you sign up as a candidate, they give you a candidate number. It's like a matriculation number, basically, right? And then that number stays with you. So after you take a break, you register again, no problem. All right. And every time you take another level of exam, you only need to pay the exam fees, right? You don't need to pay the registration fee again. There's no expiry date for the exam results. So back when I took the exam in the mid to late 90s, there was a 7-year expiry date. So like some of the other exams in the market, if you don't complete within 7 years, you need to re-register again. But now no more already.
Yeah.
Once you pass it, it's yours. Okay, so it's very, very flexible today. Yeah. Okay. So any other related question?
Is
Fixed
there?
sequence you should. Oh, okay. When you enroll for the CFA program or level, it's by level. So it's a bit different from your ACCA or other professional exams where you enroll subject by subject. Okay, first of all, CFA is by level. So one level in CFA level 1, 10 subjects. Okay, level 2, 10 subjects. Level 3 is fewer because they combine some subjects together, and some subjects like financial statement analysis, no more already in level 3. So the foundational topics in level 1 and level 2 will be dropped. And then level 3 is very focused on portfolio management and very practice oriented, like many other professional exams. So there's no fixed sequence of which one you should do first. They
Yeah.
decide for you already, all 10 subjects. So which reminds me of the rigorous preparation, right? Because you don't have a choice, we must do all 10. So the examination day, up to 2020, is 6 hours of exam in one day. Okay, 6 hours. So 3 hours in the morning, take a lunch break, and then 3 hours in the afternoon. 6 hours. So it's like running a marathon, basically, right? So this year it become computerized already. So they've shortened from 3 hours to 2 point something.
Yeah.
So they shortened the number of questions, but still 10 subjects. And we were informed that it is still as rigorous as before. So whether it's 240 questions or fewer questions, it doesn't make you a lesser CFA lah. So let's say you complete this CFA program by the end of next year, right? It doesn't make you a lesser CFA than those of us who completed it like years
Post.
ago, right? Same rigor. Okay, which reminds me of another, okay, telling grandfather story, right? Okay, but it's important now, it's important. Okay, why are we, the CFA community, so confident that it is so rigorous? Okay, number one. Number two, why would a university like Oxford, and this is not the Oxford bachelor's degree, my friend, it's an Oxford master's degree, okay, adopt the CFA curriculum for one of their master's program, right? So does NUS, NTU, SMU, Beijing University, HKU, whatever, UM, Sunway, and so on, right? Top universities in many countries. Why do they adopt CFA curriculum? Because number one, if you were a lesser university, not so rigorous, of course you adopt higher standard. Number two, it is indeed higher standard. Why? Because the curriculum created by CFA Institute is not some professor sitting in Charlottesville, Virginia, coming out with the curriculum or the questions. The curriculum is developed with the help of, number one, volunteer senior charter holders. Number two, industry practitioners and employers give feedback. So every year, the syllabus is keep up to date. Okay, keep up to date. So compared to university with a few professors or whatever professors, no university in the world has the same kind of investment industry network to have this kind of a feedback loop, right? So that makes the curriculum really, really up to that top global standard. Okay, so therefore, it's the rigor is there, yeah. So which actually creates, I wouldn't say a problem. It's a good problem anyway, by the way, that candidates who do not pass, then when it comes to next year, you need to get a different set of materials
Yes.
because it's updated every year. Okay, but the good news is for level 1, it's more stable, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't change so frequently. Level 3, the update is a bit more. Level 1 is fairly stable. Come on, Cap M is Cap M, right? The supply demand curve, you can't change it, right? Right. So some of these evergreen things in finance, they don't change. So therefore, level 1 is very stable, but they start to introduce things mostly in level 3. So like 15 years ago, derivatives came in with level 3 first. Now it's mainstream in level 1 and so on. Okay. But nevertheless, we've got a very rigorous program that you get updated in terms of your curriculum every year. But the good news about the program that we have, or rather the content partner that we use, is Wiley. And Wiley has got this so-called guarantee, right? That in case, touch wood, you don't pass this particular level, there is a warranty that you can attend or get access to the material the next time round you take the same level again. You can also attend back our lectures here with Sunway again. It's free of charge. Free of charge, right? Michelle, do they pay the photocopy for the PPT?
Nope.
Wow, so good.
We actually give it for free. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but the access to the Wiley portal, which has all these like recorded videos, several thousand question data bank, I think flashcards and all that stuff, the electronic portal access is free. Right? So there's also called warranty. If you take touch wood the same level again. Okay. I'm very long-winded. I can talk about it the whole night.
No, it's good to share. These are the information that our students or potential should know. Yeah.
So okay, related to this, which reminds me of the examination and the cycle of question setting. Okay, so many years ago. Okay, when was that? Must be more than 10 years ago. So more than 10 years ago. So I'm just explaining some past practices. So today may not be the same, but in the past, what they do is, I mentioned just now, right? They use senior practitioners to provide inputs, and that includes questions for the higher level exams, level 2 and level 3. So therefore, you may get certain things that are happening in the industry baked into some of the questions. So it could be some of the ethics issues that happened in the industry maybe 2 years ago.
Yep.
That may flow into some of the exams questions, all right? But what is that cycle? Okay, so typically the questions are developed about 9 months to a year ahead of time, right? And there's this question bank, and I cannot say how many sets of questions that they have, but obviously there is a big examination question bank, and some of these questions are developed, and it's depending on the real things that are happening in the market. Could be ethical related questions, could be some things that is in the industry that they can filter into, obviously level 3 mostly, right? Questions. Yeah. So you can imagine now if something big blows up, right? It may come into your curriculum maybe next year or the year after. Okay, there's 1 year cycle of development. Yeah. So Michelle, for that few years after I've been involved in that CFAI thing, I couldn't teach for 2 years.
Oh yeah, because it's just have to be fair to institute. Yeah.
Correct. So okay. But of course today I don't teach anymore, but I'm just helping our pool and organizing stuff and just to tell the audience I don't teach anymore.
Or maybe
I'm just a
one
mastermind. I'm just a mastermind.
stage, who knows?
Okay. Come.
Do
Any
we
other
have
questions?
questions? Yeah.
Discount. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
Definitely right, Michelle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, for students who graduated in Sunway Education Group and you register with us within 12 months from your last completion date, you will definitely get a discount, 10% discount from the tuition fee. Yeah.
Also, there's a corporate discount for certain corporates.
Yes. And if you are working in the financial industry, yes, just submit with when you submit your application, please submit along with a reference letter from your company. We will also give you a 10% discount. And if you don't get your 10% discount in level 1, don't worry. When you come back for level 2 and level 3, definitely and automatically we'll give you a 10% discount.
Mm.
Mm.
Okay, maybe Michelle, let's maybe talk a little bit about the program that we're offering.
Yeah.
So just now I explained, okay, who are the lecturers, kind
Mm.
of background experience. I've
Mm.
also talked about the content partner,
Mm.
Wiley, and the so-called warranty that we are offering for candidates. I have a couple of other features that I just want to share with the audience here. So number one is, of course, now because of the COVID, we're delivering the lectures via Zoom.
Yeah.
But normally, in normal circumstances, it's actually a live lecture
Mm.
where you come to the campus at Sunway City, right? In the campus here
Yeah.
for the lessons, and also we have actually a WhatsApp group that you can opt into for the current students.
Yeah.
And we would say this is one of the very, very useful community that we have because not only will you be able to post your questions to
Mm.
the lecturer, at the same
Mm.
time, sometimes your classmate, especially those very hardworking ones,
Yeah.
they may have an answer to your question.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a complex question, can be a simple question. It can be as simple as, hey, is there a lecture this afternoon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this WhatsApp group is very useful. And as I mentioned, some of our revision lecturers are based in UK and
Mm.
Canada. So
Yeah.
our WhatsApp group is like 24 hours. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
so it's very, very interesting and very international. And then for the students that have kind of like completed the program, we've
Mm.
got another WhatsApp group for like ex-students, right? Who have
Mm.
completed at least one cycle with us,
Yeah.
where this chat group is more, I wouldn't say casual, but it's more of a professional network lah. So like,
Mm.
okay, we'll share some tips about interviews. Okay,
Mm.
not that we don't share this tips during this level one class, but this another group of former students. So that's a
Mm.
bigger group, right? Go, share some tips about interviews, about job opportunities, whether
Mm.
it's in Singapore, whether it's in Malaysia, whether it's in, I don't know. Sometimes Darren is our Canadian lecturer. He'll say, oh, someone from the Middle East, because he teaches everywhere, he'll say, wow, the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority is having this whatever position, and then he'll
Mm.
post something there. So we have got this kind of like international community lah. Yeah. So that's very interesting. Okay.
Mm. Yeah. Actually, Darren, he has another WhatsApp group, which is also the international WhatsApp group, which he invites our students in, and there you can actually communicate with the candidates from other countries as well. So from there, you can actually learn more, probably those questions or issues that highlighted in from the other students, which we may not think about, thought
Mm,
about.
mm, 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 mm,
So
mm.
it's actually we in how do we say in a word we actually put our link our students into an international network, don't you think, Deng Hui?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does. It does. It
exactly.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so even though okay, let's say you're super smart and whatever, okay, that's fine, no problem. It's
Mm,
opt-in, right? But the
mm,
thing is, this is that network. Remember, in my few slides, I said,
mm,
it's not just about this program; it's about
mm.
the professional network. And who
Yeah.
knows, one day you might need that friend in this other market
Yeah.
for something else
Mm,
professionally, right?
mm,
Professionally. Hmm.
mm. Yeah. Okay, actually we have one more question from the floor. Is the program available if not attending live classrooms? um that is equal to self-study.
Yeah, sounds like it. So we're having these lessons today via Zoom. So it doesn't matter where you are in Malaysia, you can sign up, right? But
Yeah.
maybe this question is about not a live classroom, as in not a live Zoom. So
Mm,
obviously there is a self-study available. You can inquire through Michelle or Andrew, right?
mm,
Of these self-study options available.
mm.
But the self-study thing again is a bit different, right? You don't have that. Number
Yeah.
one, that community.
Mm.
Number two is also the pace.
Yep. Yep. And you
Yeah.
really have to be so disciplined,
Yep.
for to do self-study. Yeah.
But it's all right. I think if you find that that is your best way to learn, perfectly okay with it, no problem. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
Because okay, there's another option that some candidates do. Some people find that hey, I already have my own study kaki, right? I already got my own group, so I just do some self-study, but I still want some kind of network. So we
Mm,
have got a few people who join us only at the end for that intensive revision. So that option is also available as well.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. So yeah, Mr. Lee, you can consider that option if you don't want to join us for the full program.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all for from the floor. There's no other question. So would you like to wrap up, Bing Hui?
Yeah. So I think basically that's all I have, Michelle. So I mean, if you want to just share quickly
Mm.
some logistics related or the intake related information with the audience.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, our January intake is actually commencing on Saturday, this Saturday, and we are still open for enrollment. If you have missed the deadline, don't worry. You still can contact us. The next class after this Saturday will be Sunday, actually. So do contact us as soon as you can if you are interested to join us for classes. And my email is there. So please send us an email and we will send you the details on the class schedule, the fees, and how would you register and all that. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
so mm,
yep. Would you like to add on
yeah,
anything?
so if there are no further questions, we would like to thank everyone
Yep.
for your kind attention and your time this
Yep.
evening. And of course, we hope to see you very soon, whether it is at the regular program or the revision or some
Mm,
other programs that Someway Test is organizing. Feel free anytime, to approach us. So even after this weekend, it's perfectly fine. You can drop email, ask questions. Obviously, the team here, Michelle, Andrew, they're here to support you and help you
mm.
with this CFA journey that we hope that you will, embark on and join us.
Yeah. Yeah. If you miss the January intake, don't worry. We still have the July intake. Yeah. Mm.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Mm. So good night and bye.